This episode of the Worship Together podcast is presented by Planning Center. Planning Center Services is the all-in-one way to manage your church service. I'm your host, Jimmy Williams. This week I sat down with Gareth Gilkison from Rend Collective. You guys started touring a little bit in the U.S. Mm-hmm. You did your first record. You guys were still really based out of Ireland at that time.
Yep.
And then slowly you guys have spent more and more time. You've actually moved to the U.S. But kind of walk us through kind of that season. And I feel like it was more of the time. It was sort of the becoming of Rend Collective.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's been I'm sure everybody listening, you've always got dreams in your heart, and God calls you to something, put something in your heart, and it takes a long time for it to happen. We started Rend in 2001, so that's now 17 years ago.
Gosh,
sheep. Is that right? 17? Did I do the sums right?
Does that scare you a little bit?
Yes, it does. And our whole focus was just on community. I pastored it. Chris led worship at it. So it's been a long, long road. We actually didn't start writing our own songs probably until about 7 years after starting the community. People started coming from all over Ireland. It was for people in their 20s and 30s. And
so this was really a church service called Rend Collective Experiment, I guess, back...
Just called Rend.
Just Rend. Okay.
And the reason we called it Rend Collective Experiment was, we thought there was a lot of artists and community people in the church. And we thought, why don't we just be a collective and try stuff? So it wasn't for 7 years, and it's been such a crazy road because we didn't know what we were doing. I was 21, no clue what I was doing at all, and Chris, I think, was 19.
Oh my god,
maybe 18. Wow. But we just had a heart for building community, leading people in worship, leading people close to God, and authenticity is so important to us. Rend is actually the word means to tear, and one of the scriptures in Joel 2 is that God commands his people to rend their hearts, not their garments. So the religious expression in those days for the Jews was, if you'd done something wrong, you tore your clothes. Yeah. Obviously, that's a bit weird nowadays. Yeah, I think we would all get put in jail. But that whole idea of God was saying, I don't want you to tear your clothes on the outside and look like you're a holy person. I want you to tear your heart, be open, real, vulnerable, honest. So that's been our story since day one. Community, vulnerability, honesty, authenticity. And they're not just catchphrases. Like, that's how we've made our decisions. That's how we've pursued what we do. So, yeah, we did an album in 2009. Didn't know what was going to happen. Just started leading in churches in the UK, Europe. And then Chris Tomlin heard us and invited us to come and do the US. So we did, and we love it here. It's home from home. So we kind of have spent, I would say, maybe 70% of our time in the US. So that's been great. This year, actually, it's maybe nearly 50-50 in the UK and the US, which is kind of great for us. My wife, Ali, who's in the band, we just bought our home in Ireland about 3-4 weeks ago. So we've been trying to get sofas in and beds in, and it's not a big house whatsoever. It's just a tiny wee house which we can have base, for the time we're there. But even getting furniture for a small house is a stress. You're on the IKEA and just seeing everything they have, onto Amazon and buying beds. But it's been a crazy ride, and it's the one thing I would say is, despite all the madness, we have 3 kids. They're on the road with us all the time. We've been to Hong Kong, and we've been to Brazil, and we've toured the US. We've been in a bus for 6 weeks straight at times, without. But God's been in it all. I don't think any of us would be here if there wasn't clear signs whenever it looked like you felt like giving up, and God said there's something more.
Yeah. You can listen to this full interview and all of our Worship Together podcast episodes on Apple Podcast and everywhere podcasts are found.